NFL draft rumors are swirling right now. We'll tell you which ones are fact and which ones are fiction regarding the Dallas Cowboys next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. On today's show, we're going to talk about some draft rumors. This is always my favorite time of the year. I love draft season, but I kind of hate the 2 days before the draft because there's so much nonsense that's being thrown out there that it's hard to decipher what's real and what's not.
It's like you knowing you alternate between your Twitter feed and watching the draft day on VHS. Yep. I'm assuming not on DVD, only on VHS because he only likes the tape.
It's hard to find. Very popular.
Yeah, they are hard to find. Yeah, and frankly, it must seem like what's harder. It's hard to tell what's reality when you're going back and forth between that and Twitter and seeing what you see on Twitter as well. These last 2 days, it's just absolute nonsense that's going on. So, and again, like it's like we talked about the last day or two. Some of the stuff that you're hearing is very real. Like it's just, but it's just mixed in with so much nonsense that it's hard to tell, right? And again, there's also that third option, right, where the reporters are maybe being told the truth, but the truth is also based on a very specific set of parameters of what happens in the draft. And if that doesn't happen, then suddenly the rumor that you get told is no longer true. So it really is kind of a fun exercise to try to go through in your head.
Disagree.
Fun. Yeah, exactly. It's like what's real, what's not, and how much of this is just being handwritten by the agent and handed to the reporter to just speak verbatim.
There you go. All right, let's dive into some rumors that have been mentioned over the last 24 hours regarding the Dallas Cowboys. And let's start with, and this actually started a little bit during the pre-draft press conference yesterday, where there were people talking about maybe the Cowboys being open to drafting an offensive lineman in round one. We got a report from Jane Slater that Tyler Booker could potentially be an option for Dallas in round one. And then Peter Schrager from ESPN now, who's had one of the most accurate mock drafts over the last 5 years. He was one of the first to mention Tyler Smith with the Cowboys. He put Tyler Booker in round one of his mock to Dallas at 12 with Matthew Golden, Tetero McMillan, and Mason Graham all available at pick number 12. That's very interesting. So do you think this rumor is fact or fiction?
I think it's fiction. I think that they probably do like Tyler Booker, but Tyler Booker at 12 seems extremely high, right? And I'm as big a Tyler Booker fan as I think you're going to meet, right? I just think that if he had some sort of, elite athletic testing profile, you might be able to kind of somewhat justify that. But at this point, like, I just don't think. I think he's a very good player who could have an impact the same as a 12th round overall pick. But I just think on a value, draft stock sort of sense, it doesn't make any sense. Like, he's not going to be for every team. So that just means that he's likely to, be someone who falls. He's a guard who certainly isn't likely to be taken. He's a guard only, which is unusual to all the other guys that are likely being taken around this area. And I guess, and he, like I said, since he's not necessarily a fit for everybody, it's not even like all 32 teams are in striking distance of taking him. So taking him at 12 doesn't really make sense. I honestly, I think, having him kind of rated in the high second, low first area, I think that, that bakes in all the positive aspects of you that you like about Tyler Booker and accounts for, the obvious economics of the position and his athletic testing that kind of slots him in an appropriate spot in the latter half of the first round. So 12 is really rich. I certainly wouldn't like. I'm not going to be mad if he's the pick, but I'm going to be disappointed because I feel like they probably could have gotten him later and picked somebody else at 12.
So I'm going to say that it's fiction for them at 12. Maybe
Yeah.
in a trade back to the 20s, or
Yeah.
if he's there in the second round. I do think there's interest because I think he fits the Cowboys scheme well. Like I think in a gap scheme where he can just fire off the ball, duo blocks, all that kind of stuff, he would be really good.
Yes.
But there's quite a few things here that just don't pass the sniff test. Number one, Dallas, when they draft offensive linemen early, they're almost always college tackles. Go through the list.
Yes.
Tyron Smith,
Mhm.
Zach Martin was a left tackle. I know they didn't draft him high, but Lyle Collins was a left tackle. Tyler Smith was a left tackle. Cooper Beebe was a left tackle. Connor Williams was a left tackle. Like it goes on and on. You want these guys coming out of college that are left tackle that you kick inside, right? I think the other thing that's hard with Tyler Booker is that he's been primarily a left side player. 77 snaps at left tackle in his career, like 1,700 at left guard, and then the other positions combined 167. So he's probably a left guard in the NFL. You already have a Pro Bowl left guard on your roster. So you're either moving Tyler Smith to a new position or you're moving him to the right side. And that's just a little scary when you're doing that at 12.
Yeah, at 12 for sure. I mean, I don't have a problem moving him from left guard to right guard, but yeah, it's just another thing, right? It's not, he's not super athletic. He's not, playing the position he would be playing in the NFL. It's just another kind of small, but a knock, right, against kind of taking him at 12. My general thought, and just to kind of pull back a little bit, is all the names that I feel like we are seeing kind of, especially this in the last 48 hours, thrown out by the Cowboys, all of them to me seem like names that are viable for the Cowboys in a trade back situation. I'm reading all of this, all these names that they're being thrown around as, man, the Cowboys are really going to do every single thing they can to try to trade out of that pick and get back,
Can I go one
later
step
in the round.
further?
Yeah.
I think their names in a trade back, a big trade back.
Yeah.
Not just going from 12 to 15 or 12 to 14. To me, these are like names that you would consider at 22, 23.
Yeah, I agree. Look, if they were names that, like, I don't think we would notice them dropping names for like a 3 or 4 pick trade back, right? Like, because I mean, they're the same names essentially, right? Like, but like names like Nolan and Booker and really Jihaad Campbell. We'll talk about some of these other guys that are coming in.
Well, I mean, another guy that's been mentioned is Emeka Egbuka, who I think is a potential option. Maybe you're down in the 20s, but
yeah. And so it's like, it's all these guys to me seem that are being kind of fed to media folks seem like, with the caveat, hey, we were able to find a trade down partner. So I don't know that, like, just because these names are being fed to reporters as potential guys, folks that the Cowboys like, that it's necessarily about picking them at 12. So I'm just throwing that out there.
The last thing I want to say on Booker, because I want to be clear, because I fired off some tweets this morning when I was half awake, got people upset, which happens from time to time.
Yeah.
I think Booker is a good player.
Yeah.
But when you're drafting at 12, the opportunity cost is so important, right? Like they need to get a money 5 position so they can have a cheap contract at an important spot. If they draft Tyler Booker at 12 and he turns out to be a good player, like that's fine. But it's just such a low upside. And honestly, I think it's a kind of a low floor as well, because you're drafting a guard only who has some historically poor athleticism. I think he's going to be closer to an above average guard. But even then, he needs to be a Pro Bowl to All Pro level guard to even match the same value as the 22nd best receiver in the NFL. And that's what we're talking about with Tet, Matthew Gold, some of those other names.
Yeah, I would just basically say I'd like the player, but I'd hate the process. That's how I feel.
100% agree. So we're both kind of saying fiction, at least at 12, maybe in a trade back.
Yeah, I think so.
And in the second round, again, this is where we don't hate the player. We just hate the spot they're being drafted. If it's at 44, I love it. Like, that's a fantastic
Man,
pick because I think that's
that's
a
a great
great
pick at
spot.
44.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So just remember that. Let's talk about Walter Nolen, who's gotten a lot of buzz. He was early, somebody that was talked about as a potential top 10 pick early in this process. He might be back there now. Let's get to Walter Nolen and the Cowboys next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We absolutely love FanDuel. And now that the NBA playoffs are here, FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love FanDuel for so many different reasons, but they make betting so easy. Whether it's picking my favorite NBA team, like the Lakers, who took care of business last night, thank you, or diving into player props. They have the three-pointer props, the steals, to assist, everything. FanDuel has so many different ways to bet on your favorite team and player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Little scheduling note. Landon and I are actually going to record later on Wednesday night. We'll have a show out for you late Wednesday night, early Thursday as we get ready for the draft. And then as soon as round one of the draft is over, Landon and I will pop back on talking about the Cowboys' first round pick, some of the top players available for round two. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. We'll also have a show after day 2 of the draft on Friday that will be available in your podcast feeds and over on YouTube. All right, Landon, another rumor is Walter Nolen. We got a report from Jane Slater yesterday that the Cowboys have interest. We've kind of known that for a while. He was a 30 visit. He was somebody they met with at the Combine and at the Senior Bowl, I believe. Starting to hear some whispers from a lot of different people that Walter Nolen's not going to last very long inside the top 10, top 12 picks. Do you buy that the Cowboys are actually interested in picking him there?
I'm not sure. Like this one is where I'm really not sure because it feels like Nolan's outcomes is the breadth of his outcomes, his landing spots is really wide, right? And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact has to do with like a lot of factors that we aren't seeing, right? Like interviews, off-field stuff, questions about football character, right? Things that are being told to these teams by coaches. I think if you watch the tape, I think if you just see what he can do on tape, and if you're grading, what he's capable of doing, I certainly don't think that anyone would be poo-pooing a team for taking him in the top 10, especially in this class. Just because I think that he shows you, we've always get told that you're supposed to scout the flashes, right? And if you've seen a player do something once, you can see him you can coach him into doing it again. I think there's some questions about how coachable Nolan is, but I do think that as far as the athletic talent and the ability to be a disruptor in the middle of a defense, I think Nolan, is ready-made to do that. Now it's just about kind of finding motivation and getting consistent technique. But the athleticism to me, especially since as we've been through this last year and we've kind of slowly started to add on a money 6th position, right, in pass rushing defensive tackle, it's hard not to look at a guy with Nolan's profile, former number 1 high school recruit in the country, just a highly thought of player and an incredible athlete. It's hard not to view this guy as a guy that could potentially go in the top 10. So I'm going to say it's truth that it could happen. Because I do think that he is of the guys that we're hearing kind of, newly added to the Cowboys interest list at 12. He's one of the few guys that I feel like actually has the pedigree and the caliber to his game to potentially be selected in the top 12 picks.
Yeah, I kind of tend to believe this one as well. I don't think he's like a priority pick. Like, I don't know if he's the guy that they're hoping falls to them at 12, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's somebody that's in their like short stack of names that they're actually considering, whether that's like with Tedero McMillan, Matthew Golden, Jalen Walker. I'm just throwing out some names. Like, I would not be surprised, partly because if you look at the depth on this defensive line, I mean, they had Solomon Thomas behind Oso Digizua, and that's basically it. Like they just
Yeah.
don't have a lot of numbers. And one of the things we know in a Matt Eberflus defense, that 3 technique is such an important spot. But it's interesting that they would spend the number 12 pick on a 3 after just paying Oso Digizua a lot of money. Maybe they feel like you can't have too many of these guys and you just draft them and figure it out later.
Well, I will say this. I mean, Walter Nolen is kind of the inverse Dion Walker, right? Where you watch his game and you think, oh, this guy, you look at him, oh, 6'3", 290, incredible athlete. That's a pass rusher. That's a 10 sack, 3 technique. I've seen these guys before. I know what those guys look like. I mean, he may be that guy someday, but I think he's got a lot further to go as a pass rusher than he does as a run defender. I think that this is a guy who comes in as a ready-made NFL run defender because despite being 290 pounds, the reason that he is, considered to be he was the number, like we said, the number 1 high school recruit in high school. The reason he is that is because he is unnaturally strong. Like for being 290 pounds, he throws dudes around. Right. Like you can watch him. I'm pretty sure that there's video of him watching a draft eligible LSU guard get absolutely tossed out of the club by Walter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there is certainly a way to kind of fold him into this situation and kind of use their skills together, Osa and Nolan. However, having said that, part of the reason the Cowboys had problems last year with their run defense is that they played with too many sub 300 defensive tackles on this defensive line. So even though I think Walter Nolan comes in and actually helps your run defense, it's another sub 300-pound defensive tackle that you're putting into this rotation. So you better hope that Mozzie comes in well above 320 and that they're getting another 340-pound nose tackle in there, because otherwise you're going to go into a season once again where you've got real good potential, talent at the defensive under tackle position, but do you have the requisite size to stop the run on early downs to unleash these guys on third down?
One of the reasons why I wouldn't love this pick is we've heard a lot from Brian Schottenheimer talking about getting the right type of guys in the draft and in the locker room. And I'm not saying Walter Nolan's a bad guy, but I don't think we've really heard a lot of people say that he's a leader or anything like that either. You know what I mean? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if I had to put like a name to what it feels like it is, and you tell me if you've heard differently or wrong, right? It feels like it's one of those situations where because he was so highly recruited, he's just had a lot handed to him, I think, early on in his college career. And I think that's probably what the A&M coaches were complaining about, right? Yeah. Is that think about who he was surrounded by at A&M, a whole bunch of other 5-star guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a sense of entitlement sometimes with these, 5-star recruits that are, really highly regarded. I don't know. Again, I don't think this is not a situation where you're taking them off the draft board because it's not bad, but I don't think
it's not a plus situation either by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. Now, here's why I would like the pick. You're taking a money 6 position. I'm calling defensive tackle, a pass rusher, right?
Pass rushing defensive tackle is what it specifically. Yes. Yeah.
I think, and this is just my belief, that if you look at Matt Eberflus's history under Rod Marinelli, they love to use rotations at the defensive line, like 2 waves. So if you can have a really strong 3 technique as a pass rusher on both sides, so now the Osa can stay fresh, I like that as well. The other thing that I've been kind of transitioning to for the Cowboys is I think the only way the Cowboys are going to get over the hump is if they start taking big swings on players that if they hit their ceilings can actually be game changers, right? Like, hey, they hit on Micah and look how quickly they turned one of their worst defenses in franchise history around. It's why I'm more open to risk. This team has a GM that'll never be fired. They should be a little bit more open to taking players like this. So I can at least understand the logic and the reasoning behind it.
I mean, this is going to set Twitter on fire, but this is why I wouldn't be shocked and I won't be mad if the Cowboys trade up for Travis Hunter, because you have you have a GM who is rarely one of the owners, who doesn't have to make a deal with the owner to do this. And you need to take a big swing to kind of take the steps you need to. It's not even just about catching up to the Eagles. It's about winning the Super Bowl, right? And if you want to do that, you're going to need to get very good very fast. So maybe it's not Hunter, obviously, but taking a swing on Walter Nolen so that you have a rotational pass rush in your defensive tackle interior, man, that's a real advantage that you could leverage throughout the season.
Again, not my favorite pick. I think I have him like 19th or 20th over on the board. But again, the logic and the reasoning, I at least can understand it some. Compare that to some other positions, it's a lot harder to get behind.
Walter Nolen, real quick. Walter Nolen at 12 is a great floor. That's how I'll leave it. If that's the worst thing that could happen to you on Thursday, man, we got great options going into the draft day.
All right, let's talk about another rumor that came out this morning from Dan Graziano regarding one of the top defensive players in the class. We will get to Jihaad Campbell next. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you are ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6. It's as easy as you stream your favorite TV shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Go get Call of Duty and play with me. I love playing Call of Duty. I've got like 400 hours on it. I'd love to play with some of the listeners. Go over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, find the Locked On NFL mock draft available now on Locked On NFL Draft. Go inside the Locked On War Room for all 32 picks in this ultimate 7-episode series. The Locked On NFL mock draft available now on Locked On NFL Draft is on the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, this last rumor comes from Dan Graziano of ESPN, one of their top insiders. He was saying that Jihaad Campbell, who has recovered from his shoulder injury, he's going to be ready for mini camps and OTAs, is going to go a lot earlier than what people maybe expect in this draft. And he mentioned the Cowboys at number 12 could be a potential landing spot. What are your thoughts on this? Are you buying it or are you selling?
I think this one's fiction. I love Jihaad Campbell, and I think, it's not about like him as a player or any of that. I think this one is just specifically an agent counteracting the torn labrum news that came out 2 weeks ago, and trying to get ahead of things, right? And just throwing in the Cowboys because, I mean, it's the Cowboys, right? It's not that I don't think that the Cowboys wouldn't take Jihaad Campbell at 12. I just think that, I think that they've done enough work at the position, so it's not a need that suddenly gets like bumps it up in the priority list, right? Like it's certainly a spot where the Cowboys will probably draft a player, but I'm not like feeling like I have to come out with another starter at linebacker, especially in comparison to, second wide receiver, another corner, or defensive tackle, or some of these other positions that we've discussed, right? I like I said, I do think he's worthy of the 12th pick in a lot of ways. I like him a lot, but I do think that the kind of news that we've heard about him recently, it is going to have an effect on his draft grade. I think he's probably more of a mid to late, first round guy. Again, I think if we're power ranking these kind of by truth, to me, this is probably the second most likely true one, right?
Okay.
But I'm still probably gonna rate it as a fiction just because, simply because of the timing of all of it. It feels more like an agent counterspin as opposed to actual information.
Yeah, I tend to agree. No, I like Jihaad Campbell a lot. I think he's a round one graded player all day. But the problem is you get into the money 5, money 6 position again, and linebacker just isn't one of them. And then when you factor in that he's coming off a shoulder injury, even though he might be healthy now, It's always a little scary to take those Alabama linebackers that are already beat up.
Already beat up, man.
Already
Every time
beat
they
up.
come in the NFL. That's right.
Now, I will say this as to regards to the linebacker. If the Cowboys are dead set on grabbing a linebacker, I actually think you're better to do it earlier than later. I'm looking at the consensus board right now from the NFL draft experts. They have 3 inside their top 100. Jihaad Campbell at 14th overall, Carson Schlesinger at 40th overall, Demetrius Knight at 87th. And that's it. Those are all of your top 100 linebackers. So, like, if the Cowboys feel like linebacker is a need and they want to protect themselves from a DeMarvion Overshown, obviously, I don't think they think Kenneth Murray is a long-term option. I do think Campbell would be a fantastic fit in Matt Eberflus's defense. I don't see them doing that at 12, 16, 17, 18, maybe.
I think it depends on the type of linebacker you need. Like if you're looking for a starter, 100%, you got to draft him early because the talent, right? You're just not going to get the same level of talent at all at this point. I will also say this. I do think that as much as we love to use the consensus board for some things, it has its flaws in certain stuff. And I think that linebackers is one of those spots that, it's because it's such a scheme specific position. Correct. That and the consensus boards are coming from a point of view of non-team specific evaluations, which is again super useful for certain things, but for this kind of thing where you really are trying to find a fit, I do wonder if there aren't more linebackers that teams like a lot more in the top 100 that they feel like get an extra bump in their system, right? Like think about the linebackers the Cowboys currently have on their roster, right? Like I don't know that like necessarily, Kenneth Murray or Jack are valued linebackers outside of the system, that they're playing for with Eberflus, right? It's a lot like Nick Vigil last year. Nick Vigil wasn't a rosterable linebacker,
no,
but you play him in the Zimmer system, and not only is he a pretty good backup, he actually gave you some good starter snaps at times. So I think
agree
that
with
there
that,
is.
by the way. Yep.
What'd you say?
I agree with that. Like, I think there's some names like Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon, who I like a lot, like in the right scheme can be a starting weak side linebacker for you. But for most teams, he's probably
your point
a
overall
guy.
stands. Absolutely. Yep. Right.
Yep.
Like I think if you're looking for a starter, regardless if you like a guy or not, you're probably like, even with my point involved, I still think you're taking that guy in the top 90 picks, right? You're just surprising the consensus board.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a guy to come in, maybe not even necessarily play defensive snaps, but just come in as a special teamer or come in and as a developmental type guy, I think you can afford to get a guy with one of those 5th, one of those 6th, maybe even one of those 7th round picks. And they could come in and give you, at least some rotational stuff, maybe be a practice squad guy to start out, and by the end of the season is on your roster as a special teams guy.
And just for me, really quickly, I have Jihaad Campbell rated ahead of Walter Nolen by a couple spots.
Okay.
But once you get to the draft, you're weighing positional value. Would I rather have an off-ball linebacker or a defensive tackle that has pass rushing upside? That's where that matters a lot. And like for the Cowboys, if those were the two options, I'd rather take Walter Nolen, who I actually have a lesser grade on. But the value, the money value is so drastically different from one another. Give me Nolen and give me the upside.
I actually am the same way. I have Nolen. I just wanted to check right underneath Grant and I'm sorry, Campbell, right above Grant and Nolan. Yeah. So yeah, but I think the positional value is why that would more make sense at 12 than Campbell probably.
All right, that is it for today's show. One more sleep until the NFL draft. Make sure you're downloading the Locked On Cowboys podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Check out the YouTube channel. Tons of content coming up there, including a show later tonight, early morning. We've got a squad show coming out tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Just a ton of content. Make sure you go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.